there are significant changes afoot, and we are seeing trends emerge. I think almost in real time in ways where people are changing how they do research. One of the pieces of data analysis that we did most recently on dimensions was to look at the prevalence of preprint publication in medical science. And essentially, if you look at COVID outputs, that you can really kind of track in it in quite a sharp way once you get a good search term. You can see that, you know, as of January, we had a very small number of COVID papers relative to the overall number of papers you know, that are out there and that are being published. But still a significant growth in COVID papers in January, then February, then March. And we've now got to a stage where just in this year, there have now been more than 20,000 papers published or made available that talk about COVID research. And in early January, none of those papers were effectively going through peer review, going through preprint. Many of them were going through peer-reviewed systems. And what you see at the end of the last time I ran the numbers was about 29 to 30% of papers talking about COVID have started appearing on preprint archives. So we think there's actually culture change happening almost in real time. Things where, for example, in physics, you know, I'm a physicist by training. I grew up in a world where the preprint was an established thing. And when I was doing my PhD in the early 2000s, I did a piece of work, wrote it up, posted it to the archive, and then submitted it to the journal. And over, you know, in 2015, 2016, we had growth of more preprints, work done by Figshare, work done by Centre for Open Science, work by people like Dryad, so lots of different people starting to get recognized by the community, and systems like bioRxiv becoming much more used. And so there was that kind of, some people call it the repository spring. So that I think in several research areas, repositories really grew up significantly a couple of years ago, but there is certainly a significant amount of skepticism in large parts of the community, and there's still a large number of researchers who don't really engage with preprints. So it was very interesting to me to see how in medicine right now, it's really geneticists who tend to deal with preprints. But in fact, the virology community, the immunology community that's obviously heavily involved with the COVID situation, realized the importance of sharing the results rather than going through a full peer-reviewed process. And so I'm sure they will all go through a peer-reviewed process, because I still think that's an important part of how we communicate research. But it was interesting to see the uptake and the realization that a faster mechanism was needed to share research in this situation. So I think that's been an interesting dynamic to watch kind of unfold in real time. Speed of motion can often wash out the important essence of you know, what you want to achieve. And I think speed speed comes into a lot of these arguments. You know, I think the rise of preprints is entirely a good thing, but I am worried at the same time that we as humans, you know, this is the Kahneman Tversky type thinking. We as humans tend to consume information, agree with it or disagree with it, and have that visceral response. And then everything that then follows later is a post hoc rationalization of our original reaction to the information. And a lot of things around metrics, a lot of things around how we serve up research currently actually play to that natural system 1, system 2 thinking around rational post hoc rationalization, gut reaction post hoc rationalization. And not enough of our mechanisms are around promotion of rational thinking in the first place, and then building on rational thinking, which is what you would hope research generally was about. And so that speed element that we have in the current publication practice, there is back off time. You consume something, you think about it, you review it, you write your comments. Someone comes back to you and challenges you because your comments weren't quite what they thought they were going to be. And there's an iterative process. And sometimes a review process can take even several years before a piece comes out in public, at which point it's had an argument over it and someone has then published. And so central to scientific thinking, and the whole principle of science, I think, is really this argument. And the protected way in which we have that argument right now, I think, is a massive plus for research. Going completely towards a peer review model, a preprint model, starts to make things feel perhaps a little too much like Twitter, where people have an idea, the idea goes viral before anyone has had the time to step in and say, I'm sorry, that was an incorrect idea, you shouldn't believe that. And so I think in going forward into new systems of research communication, understanding the tempo and the correct tempo to ensure that we optimize for the human condition is something that's actually completely critical.